Hey everyone, what's up? Today I'm playing more Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. I'm playing the Xbox version on backwards compatibility mode on the Xbox One X, and so far it's been a pretty great experience. If you ever tried to play this game on the 360s with backwards compatibility, it's not great. The music continues to repeat itself. It's just kind of a nightmare. Every once in a while, I'll see frame rate drops, and I think there's a little loss in detail with things that have like bump maps or normal maps on them. Like for instance, the telescope later on in this video and the guns look a little less detailed than what I remember, but it could just be my bad memory, not remembering things how they actually looked. You know, sometimes you remember things with rose colored glasses and they don't actually look as well as you remember. I kind of find this out when I revisit older games, but it's a possibility. It's an issue with the emulation. So I was doing streams of this, and I'll put the links for the first two streams. I think if I continue to do this game, I'm going to do regular videos like this, because even though I like this game, there's really no checkpoints. Like every level section, if you die, you have to start from the beginning with instant deaths like this, with jumping on chains that give me just pure anxiety. I just didn't want to put everyone through watching me start a whole level over and over again, or just dealing with the pure anxiety of trying to time all these jumps perfectly, because this game's kind of unforgiving. You don't really realize when you play games like Uncharted or the newer Tomb Raider games, they have like mechanics and systems in place where it kind of almost like attracts you to the ledge a little bit, and the animations, like the character's hand will grab towards the ledges and stuff like that, so you have some kind of indicator of what direction you're going into. Where this game kind of feels like a matter of faith sometimes. I feel like I'm making leaps of faith and hoping that I make it. During this playthrough, I was pretty lucky. I died over dumb stuff like the auto aim with the collision detection and stuff like that, but surprisingly, I didn't fall too much off the cliffs. I think one time going down a ladder, because I was still holding down, my character went backwards and then went off of a ledge. This is the type of game where they don't try to grab and save themselves. You actually have to hold a button in order to do that. I guess it's more realistic, but I actually think they were trying to streamline the older Tomb Raider games and make it more accessible, like the Uncharted games and then the newer Tomb Raider games that followed. But I think the technology just wasn't quite there. But I think overall, this is a great idea for a game. Indiana Jones is obviously, I feel like, the inspiration for this genre, as well as like the serials back from the 20s. But honestly, are game developers watching that and are familiar with that character? I doubt it. So sometimes stuff in this area you can easily miss just because it's a slightly more primitive game. You have to think, before this, the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn and the Nintendo 64 was the last generation of consoles. So every once in a while, when you see a ledge or something like that, it'll be kind of sharp and flat and blend in with the background. But if you rotate the camera enough, like, you can pretty much see where you need to go. Every once in a while, you have to double check. I swear the worst thing that you'll battle in this game is just judging jumps. Pray that you're jumping towards the right direction, and then like when you battle guys like these, your auto aim is not the best. There is a first person aiming mechanic, but it's kind of clunky because it's before like Call of Duty and stuff like that. So like when you hold left, it goes left way more than you'd like. It doesn't feel like there's true analog control. It almost feels digital and clunky, like a lot of older first person shooter games on consoles. I love the fact that he grabs his hat like that. When I first played this game on the PlayStation 2, I tried so hard to keep his hat, so when I finished the game I'd get some sort of unlockable or bonus, but it was just for effect. You actually didn't win anything. There's a surprising amount of shooting in a game that seems to have heavy emphasis on combat. I'm glad they laid off of it. It seems like in the newer Indiana Jones game, The Great Circle, that I'm super excited about as of this recording. But since I only have a PlayStation 5, have to wait till spring. I do have a PC, but I'm scared to death like to get the game and have it not run on the PC, or have to run it on the lowest settings and not get the full experience. So I'm just going to be patient. Like close range battles like this, I think it would be easier if you had like binds, or like maybe like one of those circle menus where you hold like R1 and you select stuff super easy. I just think holding the D-pad and like sorting through your inventory while you're being shot at can be a little frustrating at times. It works, but sometimes when they spring up on you, you kind of get nervous and you screw up a little bit. At least I do. I'm like staring. I was like, should I do this? Shouldn't I? It took a while to get up here. You can see me stalling a lot in this game because I'm so scared of dying and have to restart. I mean, it's kind of a product of its time. I feel like maybe if they added a checkpoint, at least where the health fountains are and stuff like that, it'd be a little bit more forgiving. But it sucks in levels where like you have to do platforming and you're right at the end, right near the exit, and you misjudge that platform and you have to do the whole thing over again. And that kind of felt old school even for the time that this came out. It kind of felt like an outdated concept. It kind of felt off when I played this game originally. So it definitely hurts when it happens. It's definitely noticeable. That's something that was dated, like I said, when this game was new. So I would say that's one of the shortcomings of this game, even if I took how old the game is into account and the collision detection. Beside that, this game is pretty good. I mean, the only criticisms I would have is maybe with the story, and I won't spoil it for you, but I think it leans too hard into the supernatural and too early as well. But overall, until I can play like the Great Circle, I feel like as far as an action game, this has recreated the movies very, 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 very well. The statues and everything, they look really cool. I like the fire in the background. This is a fun puzzle. It's kind of obvious what you need to do, but it's still fun, and I do appreciate that they actually have proper puzzles. They don't go as far overboard as like Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine or the original Tomb Raider games, where the puzzles are and the solutions were a lot weirder. This is more common sense puzzles. Like if you can figure out puzzles in Uncharted, you can figure out the puzzles in this game, no problem. This is the tower we always see in the opening of the game every time we try to start it. I think the developers were really proud of this level. On the flip side, Prague, the castle in Prague gives me the most anxiety. I had to split this in two. I started doing this with a stream, and I was like, no, I'm not going to die over and over again on stream. And I feel like the levels are going to get a little bit more challenging from now, not necessarily with the platforming, but just my vague memory of this game. I know it's going to get challenging, so I think videos will be a little bit better. I recorded this super late. I've been running behind my videos, but I would like to actually provide the commentary with future videos as I'm playing, so you get a more proper reacting as things happen experience. Because right now, I'm basically just kind of watching a movie and going over like my memories and stuff like that. The fighting is pretty satisfying. Your one light attack usually does most of the damage, and then you want to hit him with like one of your stronger attacks right at the end, and you usually can knock them out. The enemies are a little bit tougher. I'd say the only melee combat challenges that truly give you any kind of challenge is way late into the game, because they use a different kind of fighting style, and it kind of kicks your butt a little bit until you get used to it. But all in all, it's fun. This is terrifying right here, just to have the gap. And I'm also probably in the back of my mind stressing that I'm eventually going to have to climb that chain at some point. It gives me straight up anxiety. So I took it out on him and kicked him a few times, knowing that I'm frustrated that I'm going to have to climb this chain. And as you can see, I'm a bit reluctant, thinking about my life, and I'm just like, oh, I better do it. And luckily I made it. My heart's probably going 5,000 miles per hour right now, and I'm going to try to make this jump. And this is what I mean. Like, sometimes you have super sharp surfaces like this with not a lot of texture, and it could blend in a little bit with the castle. You might not notice that it's a ledge. And sometimes you'll see ledges that look like things you can climb, but you can't, but you don't come across it that often. I'd say this is one of the more puzzle-centric areas, and for me personally, one of the least fun areas, but the next level after this actually speeds up and actually enjoy the next part of this game, which I haven't played through yet. You can see where I actually end up right at the end of this video, but I don't show anything. Kind of preview it if I decide to make another video. I would like to play through this game at least once. I've only played through the PlayStation 2 version to completion. I've never actually played the Xbox version through completion. I owned it. My experience with this game is years ago. I only had like a PlayStation 2, and my best friend at the time, he lived out of town, and he was staying at his brother-in-law's for a bit, and he had happened to get like his first job and working, and he decided to buy an Xbox over a PS2 for whatever reason. And this game came out on PC and Xbox before the PS2 version. I think they had issues developing for the PS2 version because it's quite a downgrade graphically. So I think they were really trying to optimize the game. It's not a bad game by any means on PlayStation 2, but it definitely feels like a step down if you had just played the Xbox version. Anyway, went to his brother-in-law's, and he brought his Xbox, and I believe he rented the Bruce Lee game, which it was kind of cool. It felt like your average beat 'em up, but I've been a hardcore Indiana Jones fan. Raiders is probably my favorite movie, the first movie I ever saw. And if you asked me when I was a kid what my favorite movie was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But now looking back, I kind of like the movies almost in the order they came out. Although I know people are going to get angry at me, but I think Dial of Destiny is actually, for me, a better movie than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, even though it wasn't like a true kind of feeling Indiana Jones adventure for many people. And yeah, I can see it's even different a bit for me. I thought it was an interesting story, and I was interested about that character and their stage in the life. And if you hear Harrison Ford, that's what he was kind of going for too. So I appreciate it. So huge Indiana Jones fan. So even though this had like basic beat 'em up mechanics like the Bruce Lee game, this just appealed to me. And I just remember loving the Infernal Machine. I had it for the Nintendo 64. Like here in the States, I don't know how it was everywhere else. They had a PC version that was a little bit different. And then Factor 5 worked on the Nintendo 64 version. There's actually a version scheduled for the PlayStation 1, but it was canceled rather early, and then it became like a Nintendo 64 console exclusive. I don't know why they did it like this. Maybe because it was late in its life cycle, but it was a Blockbuster Video exclusive, so you had to go to a Blockbuster Video rental store to even be able to play this game. You couldn't buy it at the store for whatever reason. I never liked it when they did stuff like this, but luckily, over the passage of time, when Blockbuster needs more shelf space, even if it's an exclusive, they'll sell their exclusive games previously owned, and I was able to purchase this, which was nice. They also had a nice strategy guide, which I think I have somewhere. Unfortunately, I took the beautiful poster out, which was actually made by Drew Struzan. Hopefully I'm saying his last name right, who did most of the actual film Indiana Jones posters, except for the Dial of Destiny. But I think he might have did one for promotional reasons. He's retired now, which is why he doesn't do it anymore. But like the 80s and 90s, if you're familiar with Back to the Future or a lot of popular franchises, all the Star Wars special edition posters, all the Star Wars posters up to episode 3 were all like Drew Struzan artwork. and it just has a very iconic style. So the strategy guide had a poster for Infernal Machine. I remember taking it out. I wish I did it now because it's a beautiful poster, but it was nice that the game actually got like a proper film poster. And they also did it for this game as well, which was nice, but I do like the Infernal Machines poster a little bit better. I don't know, the one for this game is good, but I don't know, it just seems like
Nice.
I hate to criticize the painting because they're always good to me, but it's not as good as like the movie posters, and I think Infernal Machine actually posters actually as good as like the Raiders poster or Temple of Doom. There's actually a few Indiana Jones novels that have his artwork as well. I had a graphic novel that looked like Drew Struzan actually did some of the artwork. You can kind of tell that he uses scenes from the movies that kind of model his artwork after, because if you've seen the movies enough, you'll start to recognize like clips or certain poses and stuff like that. And you'll notice with a lot of like posters for movies and stuff like that they obviously use like a still for reference, which is kind of cool because they get that hyper realistic look. And I love how Drew Struzan actually takes like, after he's done the painting, he'll actually take like colored pencils, especially white, and use them for highlights. It just has such a signature look, and it makes me sad whenever I see new entries in the franchise like poster artwork not looking as good. As cool as Indiana Jones of the Great Circle looks, and as much as I want to play it, I will say, no offense to the artist, I think that the poster is great, and I would love to have that skill level to be able to make a poster like that. But at the same time, I just don't think it's on par, especially with the original trilogy posters and then even the Infernal Machine poster. But maybe the game will make up for it. But I don't know. I have to unfortunately wait till spring. Now, I feel like this telescope was more detailed on the original Xbox version. Maybe it's because I was looking at it through rose-colored glasses. Maybe that's as good as bump mapping was back then, and it just looked really impressive because at the time I had never seen that effect before. But I feel like the detail on it's a little bit weaker than usual, but that might just be my own personal opinion. So yeah, he's kind of like punching the air a little bit. Definitely doesn't feel as satisfying as punching somebody in the Uncharted games, but it works well enough. I'm trying to cut the slack of me backtracking back and forth, but we finally made it. I didn't want this video to also be like 2 hours long for 30 minutes of footage. I think that's how some of my streams were, and if I remember, like I said, I'll put them in the description so you can reference them. If I do eventually finish the game and make videos of them, I will create a playlist, so hopefully that'll be convenient for you. You can appreciate the game, and maybe they'll make this game more available, because they seem to be remastering a lot of Star Wars games. I hope they do it with the Indiana Jones games. I do really like these statues with the flames behind them. I used to have this weird dream when I was a kid. There's like this almost ride-like machine in this ancient library, and I remember it had like automatons like that, and they were skeletal, and like they did some sort of like movements and dance like they're on tracks or whatever, and you would have to sit in this chair, and the chair would like strap you to it, and you'd be forced to watch it. And it was like this reoccurring nightmare. For whatever reason, it scared me as a kid, and I remember playing this game. And weirdly enough, like the three statues kind of oddly remind me of it because they're kind of on a platform, and where the switches were would be where the chair would be, where I sat and watched it. But it was just weird. I just had this dream as a kid, and it just happened over and over again. As someone who draws, I should have drawn it at some point. Maybe I tried to when I was a kid, but maybe I should recreate it as an adult. It sounds more interesting as I describe it. But yeah, these puzzles are pretty easy. You have to just match everything on the door. The only puzzle that's kind of different but very logical is the very last puzzle. But, you know, it's pretty straightforward. the hardest part is just trying to select which arms which and which one controls the zodiac signs. That's the largest challenge there, more or less. And I'm excited and nervous at the same time to see what waits up ahead. It's nice that they use the exact same furniture for everything. And right from the start, I'm greeted by a bunch of chains, platforms, all my favorite things. I'm not even playing the game and my hands are getting sweaty just because I remember the anxiety. Now let's see how long he waits this time before he jumps. Just thinking, wow. I think he got confident, or I was just really tired. I was playing this game at like 1 o'clock in the morning, so I was running on fumes. I just wanted to get it over with like a band-aid. I'm surprised that I actually jumped when I was that low on the chain. Looking back retrospectively, that could have ended badly. I was really nervous though, because when they shoot at you when you're on the chain, you can fall right off. It's not like you run out of health and then you fall. Like it'll knock you right off the chain. And I really don't want to do this level any more times than I have to. It'd be funny if you actually could take their hats and put it on. That seems like a feature in the Great Circle, as you get to try a bunch of different outfits. I wonder how all that works. I'm pretty excited about it considering I love like the Wolfenstein games. And yes, I even like aspects of the New Blood. I really like the 80s theme. I think Machine Games is a great developer. And of course, they have members from Starbreeze Studio. If you're not familiar with that, the Darkness games, Chronicles of Riddick. I never got to play the remastered one. I think beside a demo, I think it had like a sequel game in it too. But I never really got to play it. But I remember loving the one on Xbox. And then the Darkness, I played the first 2 games, but I'm not sure if the second one was made by, I said the first 2. I don't think there's a third game. If there is, I apologize. And I believe that that series is based off of a comic book. But anyway, I think the first game is made by Starbreeze Studios at least. And that one had a very unique feeling, and it had story elements in a first-person game. I really appreciated, like when the dude was with his girlfriend and stuff like that, and you're just sitting on your couch watching TV. The melee combat and Riddick was really good, so I think. And then the gunplay, even though it's not encouraged, and Wolfenstein was really good, as well as the storytelling and the world building. So I have no doubt they'll do an amazing job once I'll be able to play it. I heard some complaints about not as many action set pieces as one would like, but you know, if it has a good story, it might make up for it. Who knows? I honestly hope, because I hate to admit it, but as we all know, Harrison Ford's getting older. He's not going to live to be 200 years old. I don't think there's ever going to be an Indiana Jones 6 unless it stars a life support machine. But it would be really cool if they continued this series like in video game form, like they did with the Great Circle, and this is how the franchise goes forward. And I'm glad at the Video Game Awards that he's at least aware of what they're doing, because when I was seeing the Great Circle and seeing Troy Baker do such a good job at doing Harrison Ford's voice and stuff like that, I was wondering if Harrison Ford was at all aware of it. But then I was reading that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg might have had a hand in the game a little bit. And then I actually saw Harrison Ford mention the game on the Game Awards and present the award. I can't remember what it was. I think the person who starred in Hellblade 2 won that particular award. How awesome would that be to have Harrison Ford hand you an award? But he was with Troy Baker and the dude that owns Bethesda, Pete something. I can't think of his name offhand because I'm recording and I'm on the spot. I keep on wanting to say Pete Holmes, but I'm pretty sure that's it's not Pete, it's Todd Howard. The game came to me. I don't know why I was thinking about the comedian Pete Holmes. I don't know. But anyway, it was really cool to see Harrison Ford actually acknowledge the game. So I'm guessing that they showed him footage of it. I hope it actually did get his approval. He wasn't just doing it for a paycheck. More chains, my favorite. I will say the MP40 with whatever, I guess they're using bump maps since it's our early Xbox game. Whatever they're using to give it like a kind of metallic luster, it looks really cool on his back. And that's one thing that I truly think I'll miss with the Great Circle, is just seeing Indiana Jones as a character. Because a lot of times when you're playing like these character-based games, just like the movies, you want to see them. But I'm glad there's apparently like 4 hours of cutscenes, and hopefully you won't jump on chains too much, so that'll be a nice improvement. They actually came out with Staff of Kings after this. They were planning on it, Staff of Kings for the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and I imagine the PC. We only got versions for, I believe, the PSP, the Wii, and the PlayStation 2. I would recommend, if you're curious about it, to play the PlayStation 2 games because the motion controls are not the greatest. However, the Wii version has a cool 2-player mode where you actually play as Indiana Jones and his father, which is really cool. And whoever they did to get the voices for those games actually did a really good job. It's just that that game could have benefited if it was so heavy-handed with motion controls. It could have benefited from like Wii Motion Plus, because there's sometimes where, especially if you're in the heat of the moment, if you move the controller too fast, the system doesn't pick up on it. So it's best to play the PSP version. It's its own game, so that'd be fun to check out on its own, because the story itself is kind of interesting. I think the voice actor, at least for Indiana Jones, is pretty good. And there's little things that they got right. I love how they use music from the first 4 films. Dial of Destiny hadn't existed yet, but when I think back at Dial of Destiny, there's not a lot of themes I actually remember, where there's a handful that I remember from King of the Crystal Skull, especially when his hat blows and he picks it up. I recognize those themes and stuff like that. I didn't realize how many familiar themes Kingdom of the Crystal Skull actually had until I played through that game, but it's not terrible. I know a lot of people say it is, but if you want to play it, I would play it on PlayStation 2, but I would get the Wii version if you want a console version of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And it works really well with the Wii remote because it works like a mouse, which is perfect for that kind of gameplay. I freaked out so bad at this part. I also am still not sure what this little orb is that I got. It's just weird that there's these little rooms with these creepy little sculptures. It would have been cool at the end of the level if you got to see the creator of all this stuff. Like, this whole area is, even though the platforming is frustrating, all the little statues and traps and everything are kind of interesting. I wish they would elaborate it more story about why this place even existed. But either way, it's interesting to look at, as long as you survive and don't have to continuously restart it. I lucked out. Like, my anxiety was going so bad because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't want to be playing this till 2 o'clock in the morning. I like this game, but I wouldn't get past this part. And luckily, I didn't freak out and I got through it, so that was good. And then I was presented with these 2 platforms right here. And then the anxiety went way back up. Especially since they're kind of close together, I was so scared I was going to hit my head or go too low and hit my shins and not make it through the entrance or the entryway. And luckily I did, and then I was greeted by yet another chain because it's the gift that keeps on giving. If you notice, I stopped for a split second. I had to give my heart a rest a little bit. I'm just like, ugh, an opening, finally. Yeah, I was like, that looks a little too high. I guess I was thinking the same thing when I played this. I am so scared about doing this wrong. I'm just adjusting and readjusting. It's kind of funny, but at the time, I was probably sweating bullets. I probably barely had grip of the controller. It was slipping out of my hands through sweat. That's what happens trying to push forward. My thumb was slipping on the analog stick. I'm exaggerating like the struggle that I had to make this video like more intense and entertaining. So we're back at the room, and this is the puzzle I was talking about. That's a little bit different, but if you look at it, I mean, look at what it is, and there happens to be a number there. That's all I'll say. Of course, you'll see the solution as I solve it now, but you can obviously fast forward it. You don't want that spoiled for you. Apparently he can touch it and it doesn't like burn his hand. I wish there was some sort of description of some of these objects like they have in the newer Tomb Raider or Uncharted games, but I guess that wasn't a thing back in, I'm guessing this game came out in 2003 or 2002, around that time. And we got it. This is another time where X marks the spot. I guess Indiana Jones was wrong in the Last Crusade. Ironically enough, this takes place in 1935, which is also the same year as Temple of Doom.
What's that?
Man, a lot of stuff took place in Indy's life in 1935. I hope in future games we get to see more of Indiana Jones in the 1950s, maybe the late 40s. Those are like, maybe they covered it through novels, but those are things we never really got to see much in the movies or in video games, so that would be interesting. I just wonder what kind of relics he's going to have to look for next. They're starting to run out of all the popular ones, but I don't mind if they make up ones as long as they're interesting. I have no idea why there's a Frankenstein creature here. I guess they're trying to play up the Castle Wolfenstein theme. I don't know. But I'm glad that there's like these little acid distributors on each corner of the room, so that's kind of convenient. I didn't know acid glowed like a glow stick. The ones we had in biology class did not do that. Acid tended to be clear. We did not get glow stick acid. I kind of feel like I was left out. Maybe they didn't trust us with the glow stick acid. I think I accidentally touched the D-pad there. I was like, what am I trying to figure out here? It's like he's not gonna shoot Frankenstein to death. Yeah, I was always surprised, like in science and biology classes, how they let like 13 to 16-year-old kids like handle acid and stuff like that, considering like how chaotic at least the kids in my classroom were. I wouldn't trust any of those kids around chemicals, including myself back then. But I don't know, we managed, so maybe they had way more faith in us than we did ourselves, and even than I did with myself back then. That probably makes no sense, but that's part of the mdmax 09 experience, I suppose. Commentary, especially off the cuff commentary, has been increasingly difficult the less I've been doing it, so the more I do it, I'm sure it'll get smoother over time. So if you're discouraged about this commentary, I promise the more I do it, I'll get better. Just look at some of my older videos. Apparently he has a super attack now. I have to beat him to death with this stick that has like some glowing end on it. I don't even know what it is. Surprised like Indiana Jones, well, maybe they didn't have that movie where he got like some sort of like radiation poisoning from all the stuff he's around all the time. Maybe they thought that was too dark. Darker than the melting faces. One good thing about that piece of metal is that it has a big glowy end on it, so it's hard to miss when it's on the floor. There's been a few times where I've dropped something on the floor and I've had a hard time looking for it, including my hat a few times. But I think every once in a while, if you walk too far from your hat, it actually disappears from the game. So you can imagine my struggle back in the PlayStation 2 days, trying to keep that hat for every level and having to restart if it disappeared or whatever. So we got the dragon shard, and then this happens. And I'm like, okay. Now, I haven't finished this game in like 20 years. This is as far as I've gotten since then. So maybe they explain it later. But I think this is kind of abrupt. We go to this castle. We open up the one last door and I'm like, is there something left of the statues that was cut out? I have no idea. Maybe they planned it this way. But I feel like this level kind of ends abruptly and you didn't actually get to see the grand finale of what those statues were supposed to do. But maybe they had it planned all along where they just opened the last door. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was enjoyable and I hope to talk to you on the next one. Take care. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe! Thanks for watching!